Welcome back, y'all. This is week number 2 in GRA-152 Computer Graphics 2, your introduction into using Adobe Photoshop. For our assignment this week, we're going to learn all about filters in Adobe Photoshop. It's called the Fun with Filters assignment. You're going to get to take 5 pictures, either of your own or ones that you will find on creativecommons.org, unsplash.com, or photosforclass.com. So aka photos that you can use without having to worry about the copyright of. You're going to create 5 filter masterpieces. And so as a note, filters are super simple. They're an easy introduction and kind of seeing how we can use Photoshop to manipulate and kind of apply a special effect to a photo. They're fun to play around with. It's really good to know what your options are. They're not something that's used a lot hugely in a lot of graphic design work that we do, but it's also just a really good way of kind of getting in, seeing what filters work like. If you've ever used Instagram, if you've ever used any type of photo editing app on a phone, you've at least probably been introduced into kind of seeing what a filter is. And so let's look and see what that looks like in Photoshop. So first and foremost, like I said, you can either use your own photos, you can use photos from either of those 3 websites. I'm going to go ahead and go to unsplash.com. I've got it pulled up here. I'm going to go with a beach pier picture and kind of find ones that I've liked. So I'm going to try to go with kind of a beach theme for these. And so I'm going to start with 2. I like this view, but I'm also going to kind of go down and see if there's anything else. Let's see, I like some of these. Some of these are really good photos. So let's start first with that top one. I like this. I want to apply that. So I'm going to start with this photo first. Download for free. Really nice because it'll automatically save as a really high quality JPEG to your download, so you don't have to worry about creating a user account or any of that jazz. So I'm going to save that picture. I'm also going to go find some other ones I like. Again, kind of keeping with this beach theme. And seeing what I like. I like this one as well, kind of underneath of the pier. So I'm going to go with that as well. Download free. And then I'll do a third one as well out of the 5. So again, you have to have a total of 5 for your project. I'm going to show off 3 to kind of get you started. So let's go with this one. This one looks cool. Cool. So all 3 of those photos now will be in my downloads. No matter if you're using a PC or if you're using a Mac, those will all be in your downloads as the .jpegs that they came in as. The next part, as we go and open Photoshop, is that we want to make sure that we are opening the photo directly in Photoshop. And so the easiest way to do that, right, is doing open from the very front of Photoshop, or doing file open, or Command O as your shortcut to open files. And so when you open, you're going to see something along these lines, right? Either you're opening from the Creative Cloud or you're opening files on your computer. For this purpose, right, we downloaded it to our downloads folder, so we're going to open on our computer. And so as I download and open from my downloads, I want to navigate to there. I just set up my computer, so I've got to make sure to set it up. There we go. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and click once, and then if I hold Shift, right, I can click on the last one. Remember, Shift lets me select multiples in a lineup. So I had 3, so I just held Shift. So I clicked on the first one, held Shift, clicked on the third one. That selected all 3, and then I can click Open. So that's going to open all 3 of my photos inside of Photoshop. That means each individual photo will be on an individual tab. It'll be an individual file opened through Photoshop. You can see that kind of similarly to if we were inside of Microsoft Edge, or if you're in Firefox, or if you're in Safari, in any type of browser, right? It's basically a different tab for each photo. Notice that for each of these photos, if they're not full screened, so notice that this one, for instance, came in but wasn't full screened, so it's not taking up the entire space, but these 2 are, right? I want you to look down to your keyboard. Your shortcut to make sure to fill the space, basically to fill the entire frame with your photo, is Command 0. Command 0 lets you basically take the photo and fill that entire space with your canvas so that you can see every bit of the picture, right? So Command O, Command 0, which what you just noticed for that photo, right, was that it was zoomed in, right? So if it's zoomed in, that means Command 0 will let it zoom out, so it'll actually be sized up. So you're not missing any part of the photo. Again, zooming out, zooming in to make sure that you're seeing every bit of that photo that you've downloaded. So let's take a look at this. We've got 3 photos, right? Individually separated. If you open more than 3 photos, you'll probably see a little menu right here where you can search and look for each individual picture. But you can also just have one at a time if you wanted to. So let's start with this first one, right? So filters, really easy to find. It's pretty straightforward if you look up, right? The filters menu at the top. We can see different types of filters are broken up into different categories. We can see, for instance, like 3D or blur gallery, distort, noise, pixelate, render, sharpen, stylize, video, and other. We also see filter gallery, and I want to call your attention for a quick sec to filter gallery because I think it's the easiest way to get to a bunch of filters and see a bunch of filters kind of visually at the moment, and kind of see what that photo would look like if you clicked on each filter. So a little similar to what we've experienced if you've ever used Instagram or if you've ever used any type of photo editing app on your phone. Before we go in and start using filters, I need you to understand that using a filter is a permanent effect, right? So if we apply a filter, it is a destructively editing type effect. Once we save that photo, it's saved, right? So there's no going back and editing it to bring it back to the original. So if you don't like the way it looks, always keep that in mind in the middle of it. So for instance, if I go to filter gallery, right, you'll go and you'll open filter gallery, you'll see this pop up. It's going to be a zoomed in portion of the photo. So if you want to, again, kind of see what it looks like fully, Command 0 will let you see the entire photo in the filter gallery. You see all the different types of filters that exist. So we have artistic, brushstrokes, distort, sketch, stylize, and texture. I'm going to start with texture for a sec because that's the example that's listed on the front page. You see my dog, my husky, with one of these. And so we see stained glass, right? So it kind of gives you a little preview of what that filter for a texture might look like. So if I click it, right, it's going to process and show what it looks like. With Photoshop, just like with a lot of Illustrator and Adobe programs, right, Adobe automatically sets kind of general parameters of what it's already set up as. So cell size, border thickness, light intensity. We can adjust any of these types of sliders, right? So we can adjust the intensity of what it's going to look like. So what I want you to also see is under any of these types of filters, we're also going to have additional types of things, right? So right now it's on stained glass. I want you to also see that there's other types of things that we can have, right? So if you look, this menu is a lot more than just stained glass. So I could choose grain or halftone pattern or ink outlines or neon glow or plaster. And so if I wanted to, I could choose something else. Note that most of these, right, also show up here underneath of each of these folders. So let's stick with stained glass. I like the look, but I kind of want to make these stained glass pieces bigger, right? They're kind of small. So we can increase cell size, right? If I were to increase cell sizes, you notice that the picture kind of slowly disintegrates. And so again, we can apply filters to create artistic pieces, to give kind of a specialized look and appearance to any photo, but you have full control. And that's one of the beautiful things about Photoshop, unlike with a lot of photo editing apps on phones, is that you have full capacity of changing most of these small details for the filters, right? So if I wanted the border thickness of each of these cells to be thicker, I could increase, for instance, the border thickness. I could make it look more like a cathedral if I wanted to, right? If I wanted the light intensity to be more, I could make that light intensity a little bit more. But again, right, I said that these are permanent effects. So one thing that I want to make sure you understand is don't just slide these all the way to the right just to try to like slide the slider all the way to see how much it is, right? One, first and foremost, you can easily crash Photoshop pretty quickly, because if you think about it, with all of these being destructive permanent effects, it's having to change and make those changes to the entire photo. And so depending on your computer, you can easily crash it pretty quickly. But also, let's take a look at this. So if I click OK, I'm basically saying, cool, I'm happy with this stained glass effect. So it's going to apply that effect total. Notice that my background layer as the photo is exactly that photo. So if I Control S, right, if I save this, then my original photo, let me pull it up. My original photo, right, which is this one right here, will no longer look like this photo. It will permanently look like this. And so if you want to save a copy of, like if you like this, but you want to come back and make sure just that you didn't do it permanently, you can always do File, Save as a Copy, right? Or you can do Save As and make sure to number it as like, all right, cool, I like this, but let's name it as something different. The big thing is just make sure that it is not saving over the original until you are like, cool, I like the look of this. So we just applied one filter effect to this picture, right? If we wanted to apply multiple effects, we can. We're not restricted to just one filter. You can add multiple filters on top of each other, but I would be cautious and I would recommend not to stack them so much that it gets too insanely crazy, right? I can add filters out the wazoo for the end of the day, but at some point, it's going to start to look like a hot mess express. And so let's say I've got this photo. I like that it looks, like stained glass. Let me look at some more filters under the filter gallery, right? So I'm going to Command 0 again to zoom out. So what you're seeing right now, right, is if I was to try to go and add another effect, so I just canceled out of that. If I were to go to filter gallery and apply a new effect, come here. Filter gallery. If I wanted to, Command 0 to zoom out, apply, let's say for instance, maybe a sketch effect, right? Let's say I wanted to do maybe charcoal or graphic pen. As I click on it, notice that it turns to gray and white and black, but notice now the picture is almost not even recognizable anymore, right? And this is where I'm saying if you apply too many filters, if you go above and beyond just one photo filter, it starts to lose a lot of its original capacity as a photo. Right, you can kind of see the program trying to go through and process what the effect looks like. So what's nice about it is that if you're trying to get a specialized texture effect that you really want to use, right? So let's say you wanted this kind of scaly effect to use later down the road for a Photoshop like project, you could use multiple filters on top of each other to try to get this effect. Again, if we just want to have kind of a stylized art piece that has a filter thrown on to see what it looks like, one filter is sufficient, okay? Elsewise, we're going to wind up with a very different picture than we originally had that doesn't look anything like what we originally had. So again, you don't like what it looks like, you don't like the way this is, you could always Command Z and try to undo it, going back to originally where you were, so long as you haven't closed out of Photoshop and so long as you haven't gone so many steps down the road. So we've got this photo. I liked that stained glass effect, but let's look at a different one. Let's go filter gallery again. I'm going to Command 0 to zoom out. We already looked at what stained glass looks like, so let's turn it into kind of a painting. Let's do sprayed strokes, right? So you can kind of see it turned into a painting. You can kind of see the different types of sprayed strokes of brush strokes. Again, you can increase or decrease the amount of the length, the radius, kind of how often those brush strokes appear. This is one of those things where this is very, very, very processor heavy on your computer. So make sure that as you go and you slide it around and trying to get it, do small actions one at a time, give it time to process to make sure that it's not going to lose too much of it, and then you don't lose your project as a whole before you actually do save what you liked. So let's say that I liked this effect. I click OK. Awesome. Look at that. Perfect. So remember that we need to save as JPEGs. And so if we were to look, for instance, if we were trying to do save as, I want you to see, I'm going to save on my computer. If I try to do save as, because it was a JPEG, right, it can remain as a JPEG, but I can, of course, rename it and save as first initial, last name, filter 1, right? So usually for most projects I want to get you used to is first initial, last name, the project name, and then if it has multiple components, so for instance, you have to do 5 filters total, 5 different filter pieces, that means I want to add the number in as well. If I do that as 1, save, when we get the JPEG options popping up in Photoshop, these are the quality of images we're saving, right? So right now it's saved as 8 or high. Notice you can go larger, right? You can go all the way to the right, do quality of 12 maximum, and then you can click OK. So that's going to save that individual file as ngobelfilter1.jpg. What I want you to see now, right, is if I were to go and look at my where is my go to downloads. Okay. So if I were to look at my downloads, I've got the 3 originals, right? But because I saved this new one as ngobelfiltered1.jpg, that means that I preserved the original, right, without making a final edit to that photo. So you can kind of see that if I did a preview right here. There's the original one. There's the original one. There's the one that I applied the filter to. So the one that, of course, I applied the filter to is the one that you're going to turn in all 5 at a time. So let's do the next ones, right? So let's keep with that same idea of filter. We're going to do filter gallery. For this one, I actually really liked the idea of possibly doing maybe like cross-hatching. And then so for cross-hatching, let's increase the strokes. Let's do lower sharpness. Let's go even a little harder on the cross strokes. So cross strokes is one of those filters that again might blur out your photo, but it's going to give kind of that artistic, creative, painty feel. And so I like the look this kind of gives. I'm going to do OK for a sec to finalize that. And then I'm going to stack another filter on this. So let's do that. We'll command 0 to zoom out. And then I'm going to do texture. And while this loads, I think I want to do this one. And so this will kind of apply a 3D texture to it. So I can increase or decrease the amount of cracks that are kind of breaking into it. So if I wanted higher cracks or lower cracks, we can kind of decrease or increase and kind of get that texturized breakdown of a photo. I'm going to click OK. So that means that I've applied 2 different filters. You'll note that on the project, I want to make sure that you both submit the files, but you also explain in your notes for your submission, what did you do? Like what type of filter did you use for each file? Don't just submit the file and call it done. Tell me what you used. What type of filter did you wind up using for each? And if you used multiples, detail which one you used first and which one you used second. And if you did it third, fourth, fifth, whatever, make sure you list out what you did for each. I'm going to do file, save as again, right? Save on my computer. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So ngobel filter and number 2, right? So in my downloads folder, save. I'm going to do as, again, maximum. So slide that all the way to the right. Do 12 for quality, maximum. Click OK. Wait for it to save. And so if we were to go back to downloads, we have my two filters right here, right, of the different types of filters I've applied. And so just like you were doing last semester, you want to make sure that you have all of your files in one single folder. Remember, you can right click, you can create a new folder. So this is the Fun with Filters assignment. I can put both of my files, right? Holding Command or holding Shift, I can select both of these, put them inside of that folder, right? Make sure that you have all 5 of your finished filters in here, and then you can right click, and remember you can compress or you can zip the folder so that it is a single zip file, right? So when I compress it, it's going to go through the process. You'll wind up with this zip file, and this zip file is what I want you to submit in the very end on Moodle. So just make sure that, again, you have 5 total filter effects applied, minimum 5 different pictures that you've chosen, whether that's your own or whether those are the ones that you've downloaded from those websites, with different types of filters applied. Don't just randomly choose and apply filters. Try to think through and be creative about what you're applying. Why are you doing it? What's the purpose of the filter? What's the theme that you're trying to apply? How are you trying to enhance this photo, right? Whatever the photo may be, what's the purpose? What are you trying to do? Again, filters are not something that you use heavily in graphic design, but they are something that exist in Photoshop and you can use kind of throughout to try to get used to just giving your photos a nice little unique touch. So again, make sure that you, of course, have submitted all of that as one single file, a zip file here. This project is due on the 23rd at midnight, which is Sunday, the 23rd of January. So just make sure that you submit that up here to Moodle. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day. If you have any questions at all, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask at all. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.